special edition of the Sunday Music Roundtable here on Twitch, and we're also simulcasting over to Twitter and over to Instagram and a bunch of other socials as well here on this Sunday afternoon. Hello, replay viewers. Welcome aboard. It is another Music Roundtable Midsummer Edition here on Twitch, and a very pleasant good afternoon to all my friends here in the States and to all of our friends over there in Europe. Good evening, and to our friends in Australasia, good morning. And to you replay viewers, thanks so much for spending your time with us here. I am Jim. I am from the northwest suburbs of Chicago, thanking you for spending your Sunday with us here on Twitch as we engage in the lively art of music conversation. No filter, no holds barred. We did a little quiz last night with a multitude of categories, and it kind of spurred people on to say, Jim, we got to go out there and chat and interact with some people who know music and love music and are passionate about music. And I am bringing in two great friends of mine who I've known for many years, both of whom are as passionate about music production as far as the sounds, as far as the engineering, as far as the industry, as far as festivals and concerts and everything involved in the world of music. I'm going to be bringing in, as of right now, a couple of great friends of mine. Check this out, guys. First of all, hailing from across the pond over there in Scotland, she is the hostess and the presenter of Helen's mixtape. Yes, and she's over there on 365 Radio. Download the 365 Radio app, or you can listen to it online. There's no adverts, nothing. It's commercial free, and there's great talent on there 24/7. But the woman who I'm bringing on board has been doing this for quite some time. She has a great working relationship with a lot of musicians and engineers in the industry, and it is an honor and a pleasure to call her as a good friend as well. Everyone, please say hello to the amazing Helen Wallace. Hello, Helen. How are you, my friend? Ooh, may if I
Muted me.
here. Hi.
Have you unmuted me?
And I got
I'm
another
saying,
guest too.
I was saying that was quite some build up there, Jim.
No
What
pressure.
am I the host of?
Oh yes. Oh.
No, what am I the host of?
Oh. Notice I said it really straight. I said Helen's mixtape.
No, but how
But
do you
you want me to
normally
do
say
it
it?
like
How do you normally say it?
what's the dude from what's the name of the guy from Empathy Test? What's his name?
Isaac.
Was it?
Isaac.
Isaac. Hello, this is Isaac from Empathy Test, and you're listening to Helen Wallace on Helen's mixtape.
Helen's mixtape.
Helen's mixtape. I talked about this last night.
Why am I so? Why is my big ball face like right up? Like this is too. Can we do something?
Oh, I'm going to switch because I'm bringing in Sean right now. Our next guest hails from beautiful Rockford, Illinois, about 90 miles northwest of me. And he's also a music junkie. He is a walking almanac of knowledge. I have participated with him in music quizzes from people all around the world, like Maddox and also Christina and a bunch of other people who were on quizzes. And Birdman is always in the know as well. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is from beautiful scenic Rockford. It's the Birdman. Hello, Birdman. How are you, my friend? Let me unmute your audio. I want to make sure that your audio is muted just like Helen's at the beginning to make it
Yes.
Say hello.
Glad to be here.
And you're outside. Look at that.
Yeah. I'm on a 3-season porch, so I'm ish. I'm outside ish.
Ish. Okay, so you don't have mosquitoes getting in there or nothing.
No.
Which is nice. See, that's what I'm saying. We have a 3-season porch.
Yes.
Our neighbors have one too. And he's fixing the screen after the storm the other day on the west side. But thanks for coming by, Bird. We appreciate it. How have you been?
Wonderful. I mean, it's can't complain. It's been it's been great. It's been a great summer, and I've had some wonderful music discussions with people, and haven't attended anything yet. Was planning to go up to Milwaukee Fest, and I did not. But you never know. Something will come around the corner, and the wife and I'll be probably attending.
You never know. You can go up to the Wisconsin State Fair next month. There might be some fun stuff going on there.
Some of the things that I really enjoy are all of the festivals up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
I
They
love
have
Summerfest.
all the ethnic fests,
Yes.
Fest, German Fest, Irish
Fest.
Fest, just to name a few. And a lot of it has live entertainment. So if you get up to Milwaukee and just check out the weekend, and there could be a possible festival going on, and you get a chance to see some unknown artists performing, ethnic style music.
Yeah. It's that fest season, that fest time of the year. And like I said, that's definitely, I mentioned Summerfest, obviously Fest Italiana, German Fest, Polish Fest, there's all kind the German Fest up there is to die for. Always a good time. And even the Wisconsin State Fair, there's some little side stages with emerging artists and independent performers that are definitely eye openers and are very talented and everything. So there's no question about that. And Helen's up over here, right over there. There
Can I
we
just
go.
say hi to the person in the chat who acknowledged us? Hello. Is that on yours, Aussie?
I should put my chat up
Aussies?
in here. There we go. Ozzy! Oh my
Make sure we
goodness.
acknowledge our people and say hello to them.
Yes, hello to our chat. Ozzy, long time. Hope you're doing well. She's over in the Massachusetts area out on the East Coast.
And the lights all went down in Massachusetts. That was just for you, Aussie.
So I assume that she's an Ozzie Nelson fan then, and
Ozzy and Harriet.
Yeah.
What's going on, Oz? How you doing?
Aaron!
And then Ozzy's a huge fish fan. What's up, Andre? Good morning to you. Thanks for jumping on last night's
Now, I know we're both talking about different fish, right? When you say fish, I think Marillion. You're talking about fish pH fish.
Well, yeah, like jam fish or.
But it took me a minute to click.
What I found.
Right.
Oh, Siri, you stop chiming in your nonsense.
But I love Marillion. I love, like, Jigsaw is one of my favorite Marillion songs. Kaylee and Lavender and Fish's Gentleman's Excuse Me is one of the best songs ever.
Fish is a giant. Like, you think you're tall? Fish is like nearly 7 foot tall. He's like, oh, and I'm tall. I mean, you're talking to him like that.
And he's 7 feet. You've met him?
I have. I don't think he is 7 feet tall, but it's like he's 7 feet. Like, he's very, very tall.
He's a big dude, too.
He's a big dude.
Big bone dude. When I remember watching the Kaylee video back in 1985, and there's like the kid version of him, and then they show the older version of him. And he's taking his hands through if you remember the music video, he's putting his hands through the fence, the wire fence. Mm-hmm. As a little kid, and all of a sudden you got this. Even then, he looked like a really tall guy.
Well, he is a really big guy. Anyway, with that, that's useless information that nobody needs to know.
I know. I don't know
It's
why.
so random. You weren't even talking about that fish. You're talking about a different fish.
Just tying it in with fish for Ozzy. Ozzy is saying that the summer tour is happening now until August. Ozzy, have you gone to any of the fish shows this year? Like Trey Antanasio, or is it Trey Antanasio? I keep Trey. What's his last name? I forget. It's Dyslexic Sunday. I was quizzing for 12 hours yesterday.
I know, and I don't even know did you sleep well? Did you have a decent sleep after that? Or
Yeah, when you have good beer, there's no hangovers. I was up around 9:30, 10 o'clock. It was nice.
Fair enough.
Had a couple.
I popped in, but it was like 5:30. I stuck around for half an hour. I'm like, no, I need to sleep. Like, I should have been sleeping.
You were on like at 5 in the morning, 5:30 for crying out loud on the quiz last night. And we had a nice.
That's why I always look like I've got big bags under my eyes.
I just have the lights setting so you can't see them.
Zombie Helen.
Let me see if I can improve.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden. That's going to be the event center for Kiss's last concert in December.
Yes.
The final hurrah for the 18th time. Kiss has had 18 farewell tours, and this is going to be the final tour.
Give up.
It's true.
Absolutely true. And I'm Gene Simmons of Kiss. We're going to do our 18th farewell tour. It's like, I'm Gene Simmons. Go get yourself a Kiss casket. It's ridiculous. It's
He's
It's
a
like
wonderful
it's like the
marketing.
boy who cried wolf, though, right? They're going to do that, and then people aren't going to bother buying the tickets, thinking, yeah, there'll be another one, and then that will be the final one, and that's what
Yeah.
He's the king of gimmicks, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in the '80s, let's go without our makeup. Oh, wait a second, let's go back to wearing makeup.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna see. We're gonna see what this final leg of this final tour is going to be, including, and are we going to see people like Ace Frehley show up, and are we going to see people like Peter Criss show up? You never know. I mean,
I
it's
wish.
a possibility. Who knows?
Yep. Ozzy is spot on here. Kiss is not Kiss without Peter or Ace. Yep. And I was this close to seeing Ace Frehley solo about, what, 5, 10 years ago? And I'm so mad. I mean, the guy, he's cleaned up, and he's just as focused and as good as ever. I mean, crazy good, I heard. You know? So,
So I
but
was in a discussion earlier this week about the singer-songwriter, and I just thought maybe I'd bring it up here at this junction that
yeah,
we've lost recently. We've lost not only we lost Canadian hero Gordon Lightfoot,
or Lightfoot, yes.
but we also lost John Prine recently.
Yes.
And when you get into the portion of the singer-songwriter that can tell you a story and almost put you there with them. Jerry Reed comes to mind. Ray Stevens comes to mind. Those types of, there's a certain genre of the singer-songwriter that can use wit, humor, and whatever genre that their music is produced in, where they kind of put you on the scene and they tell them the story in such a unique and perspective. The Beatles did some of that with some of their fictional characters, but with today's modern music, do you feel that we're losing some of that, I guess, third person narrative in our songs?
Storytelling.
Or is it just a storytelling reimagined in a first person's perspective?
I've got an opinion on this, but I'm going to wait to see what Jim's going to say first.
That is I love the analogy because you mentioned the late John Prine from Maywood, Illinois. You mentioned Gordon Lightfoot. Third person versus first person. Ooh, that's a tough one. I was about to say there is a great storyteller out there. His name is Killer Mike. He's going to be playing Pitchfork next weekend here in Chicago. He's in a little rap group called RTJ, or Run the Jewels. He is an outstanding storyteller in person, very humble, very rough upbringing. But you said first person versus third person. I was going to say Killer Mike is an example of a contemporary storyteller. However, it's first person because it's talking about his upbringing and what his perspective, what he was going through, versus a third person being creative. Hi, Nancy. What's going on over there? Beautiful Wisconsin, Lake Country.
Nancy's another one who would have been good to have up on the
Oh my
round.
God,
She likes
Nancy.
music.
Nancy, did you have time to jump on? Or
If you're free, Nancy, it would be nice to have you up here with us.
Oh, that would be good. So that's my take on, but storyteller, first person versus third person. And I think this is when I can hand the baton over to Helen and let her offer her perspective on this, because this creates kind of a neat.
Well, my first initial thought was to pick up on the phrase modern music, right? Because real storytellers and, that traditional vein of writing songs isn't really being heard in the mainstream, right? So it depends on how you define modern music. If you're going by what's heard on the radio, all of those commercial songs, for want of a better word, beats, but they're not even songs. You look at the list of people involved in the production of that, and they've usually got like 3 producers and 5 writers, and it isn't one singer-songwriter telling a story. But there are people out there who do that, they're just not being heard. So I'll give an example. A perfect example, actually, is Jim mentioned them earlier, Isaac Howlett from Empathy Test. The reason that I love Empathy Test so much and why I'm so passionate about them being heard is he has a wonderful way with words. And that's not something we hear very often now because it's not out in the mainstream. It's all this, like just regurgitating old songs or, chopping bits up and sampling things. And, we're not hearing. I mean, like, will there be another Gordon Lightfoot? I was brainwashed with Gordon Lightfoot as a kid. My mum used to listen to Gordon Lightfoot, John Denver, the Eagles, Don McLean. That kind of like guitar, easy listening, I guess you would call it. So no, I'm not in Ireland. I'm in Scotland. So I'm familiar with that, and I think regardless of what genre music is, if you can pair it, if you can peel it down and like, okay, I'll use Depeche Mode as an example because that's who's known over in the States, right? That's my genre of music. If you listen to songs by Depeche Mode, yes, they're very electronic, but the songwriting is such that it can be pared down and performed in an acoustic way, right? It can be performed acoustically because the songwriting is strong. And I think that's the measure of whether something is well crafted. Now, as for the first or third person thing, that's an interesting conversation. But I think our stories being told generally, because I don't think that they are. I think that, music's being chopped up and rehashed and sampled here and sampled there, and a couple of extra words are being added into a 30-year-old song, and then someone's claiming writing credits for that, and then by when you read it, you've got 7 writers, and it's the art of songwriting is it's kind of I don't think it's dying. I just think it's not being heard. It's not being celebrated. It's not being put out into the world, which is why little independent radio stations and, Pons, stop being an idiot.
So maybe I should kind of reframe the question then.
Yeah, sorry. I know I didn't answer your question.
No, I think you led me down another path with that question.
I love that perspective, though.
So let's say there are certain songwriters where the lyrical content is the emphasis of the song, and the musical accompaniment adds to the song's content, but it's not the main focus. So you take a guy like Jim Croce, wonderful musical content, but you're really interested in the lyrical content of his songs. The story about Jim, or Bad Leroy Brown, or things of that nature, where you're really interested in hearing where the beginning of the story starts, what happens in between, and then the development of the conflict and then the resolution. A Boy Named Sue by Shel Silverstein that was performed by Johnny Cash, where you invest in the lyrics of the song as opposed to just
the dressing around it.
The dressing around it. Maybe that's more along the lines of what I was kind of referring to. And is that becoming a lost art, or is it just being reimagined? Because there's a country artist named Luke Combs who is now performing a Tracy Chapman song. One of those fast cars, one of those songs where it takes you on a journey. And he's repopularized that song, and he sings it verbatim. I mean, when she refers to herself as she and this, he uses the pronouns of all the. He didn't change the gender of the song. He just performed the song as written, straight out, and it's a wonderful song, and it's brought her recognition again, and some dough, which is good. So, there's an attempt there to acknowledge a good song that's written for its lyrical content. And do you think that trend will continue, or do you think it's a one-off?
Ooh.
I wish that people would write their own stuff rather than cover it. Like, I know that that's always been a thing. I know that that's always been a thing, right? But it just feels like that's more of a thing now. And I think it could be interpreted that it is a dying art because
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that we're hearing is regurgitated. It's other people that have written it 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. But it's interesting you picked up on the gender thing because actually, I don't know if you remember a hit that Cyndi Lauper had back in '83 that was written by Prince called When You Were Mine. And it was the same. It was written by him and she kept the gender, right? So I know that you're sleeping with another guy, right? She kept that in it, which was, a big thing in '83. So that was there's no point I'm making there. It's just an interesting, like, sort of like, because it's unusual. Normally, someone adjusts the song to meet their own, perspective. But but the whole thing of it being a dying art, there is nowhere that you can learn how to write a song, right? It's not taught to you. You learn by absorbing what's come before you, and you're influenced by what you listen to.
Yep.
Or you go out and you listen to people's back catalogue, and that becomes a learning curve. People who were writing songs in the 70s and 80s were going by what they'd heard on the radio from the 60s. That's you learning your craft, copying other people's songs and learning how to play your instruments, playing other people's songs is how you learn your craft. Going out and, gigging on stage and, as a cover band is how you learn your craft before you even get to writing your own songs. And it's a dying art because we're coming through a situation where we've had the 90s and the 2000s where it's dance music, which is all about the beats, right? It's all about the beats. Now, don't get me wrong, I think some amazing songs were written in the... I'm an 80s, that's my thing, right? And some amazing songs were written in the 80s where the atmosphere or the sound was a lot of, creating an atmosphere was a big part of the song. But when what happens is...
You're saying no cap. You're not putting judgment on it, you're just stating facts.
Oh, I've lost my screen. Why have I lost my... Everything's gone black for me. Oh, there you are.
There you are.
There I am. I just feel that, as time moves on, you have to go further back to catch those singer-songwriters to influence you.
Right.
Like if your influences, if you're coming up now, right, and you want to make music, your influences are like dance music. The mainstream isn't the same as it was when you were listening to the music in the 60s and the stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like you have to go further back to absorb that era of sing. And don't forget, a lot of the stuff that was out in the 60s wasn't written by the artist performing it. There was maybe a handful of big writers that wrote songs and artists covered those songs or took those songs. Yeah, we'll do that one. Record label said, yeah, we'll take that song. It wasn't really written by the people that were performing it.
That's a good point.
You have a lot of art, you have a lot of covers of the same song. Actually, you have in the 60s you'd have like 3 or 4 different covers of the same song by different people because the songwriters would distribute that song out. So I don't know, like I feel like I've gone off on a tangent and I haven't really made the point I'm trying to make. But I just feel like you're not taught. There is nowhere to go and learn how to write music. It's whatever you're absorbing.
It's basically it's something that's on your mind. You have a feeling in your mind or in your heart, and you need to put the pen to the paper or start typing something, and then putting in the music underneath it, or vice versa. Maybe it's a melody that's catching you, and then you put words to it.
But the influences now, you're going back. The mainstream has been rap, or the mainstream has been dance, and there isn't that singer-songwriter influence every day on the radio. You're not tuning into that. Hi, Nancy. You're not tuning into that. Do you know what I mean? Like so you have to go even further back to pick up on. Don McLean's an amazing writer. If you listen to the lyrics, Vincent. What a masterpiece. That doesn't come along that often. Those people don't come along that often, and even lesser so now. But there are still people out there doing it. We're just not getting to hear them. They're not being promoted. They're not being heard.
And in the part I struggle with, I'm a person in my 50s. I have children, and they listen to modern music, and sometimes the problem that I have is the music of today is not written for me. It's I'm not the audience that they're looking for. So it's
Right.
not that it's bad music. It's just it's not written for me, and so I can't necessarily relate.
Yep.
Whereas certain songwriters, it was a universal acceptance because everyone could relate. And maybe that's part of the art too, is it's not being written for universal artists, it's just being written to appease a certain segment of society.
So maybe it's more secular, aimed towards a certain cume or demographic, as opposed to just being put out there because.
I would agree with that as well. There's an element of that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there are certain subject matters that everyone can relate to, right? The things that songs were usually written about: love, you know, despair, things that we, as humans, we can all relate to.
Right.
And, it was a much more universal, not formula.
I found this on the web.
Oh my God. City keeps chiming in. I'm not saying it was formulaic, but,
Right.
there are certain topics that are universal that everyone can relate to. I think that's what you're kind of seeing, Bird. Whereas now it's more
Yeah, I mean,
now it's more bitches and hoes, bitches and hoes.
it could be serious, it could be humorous. I mean, I think of a song like Amos Moses by
Yeah.
Jerry Reed, where he's talking about an alligator hunter,
Yep.
but he brings you in right away into this person's life. And so you follow this person's life to see what happens in a novel way next.
Right.
Because you find out in the opening lines that the guy loses his arm to an alligator. So
Right.
what else can happen to this guy that makes him interesting, or certain things like that, where they capture your imagination immediately and then take you on that journey. Maybe that's what I don't know exactly. I haven't focused it down and distilled it down.
Yeah.
Kind of like to leave it open ended, but the singer songwriters that you're talking about, where you might have to go into the past, you may have to go way back into country music, into the early days of country music, to formulate their storytelling and bring it into modern times. I don't know. But I know that popular music is not always universal. Even though it's called popular music, it's not always universal. And there
Mm-hmm.
are certain people that go, it is, I don't resonate with it. It's just not, it doesn't resonate with me. So although it's not written for me, it's probably stuff that I won't enjoy as much as listening to music that has been out for a longer period of time.
You said something there as well that I wanted that you pick up on, and you said, you had to go back into the old country, and we're talking about storytelling. And when I think about, and earlier you were talking about, going to ethnic festivals and stuff, and every country has some kind of folk music, right? Some kind of, which is steeped in storytelling. And immediately what springs to my mind is a Scottish band called the Corries, who were renowned for their storytelling, and a lot of it with humour. They would talk about things like the massacre of Glencoe, and the Rose of Allendale, things that were kind of heart-wrenching, when telling. They were both history teachers, right? That was their background, so a lot of that was steeped in Scottish history and things that had happened over here a couple of hundred years ago, Jacobite rebellion, whatever. But then there were things like the Bricklayer song, where they're talking about a brickie who tries to put his load of bricks on a hoist, and then it's heavier than him, so he ends up flying up, and then he falls back down again, and the barrel of bricks just falls, like exactly what you're talking about. Like, it's a story, you want to hear what happened next, and it's humorous. And they're a classic example of that. Now, they might have had a couple of hits in the charts in the 60s, but they're not popular music, but if folk music, who the Corries are. They wrote The Flower of Scotland, which has been adopted as the Scottish national anthem. So they're known, but they're not chart topper. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a folkie, but I love the Corries, and it's the way that they tell stories. It's the way that they so exactly what, so that Does that happen now? Reverend and the Makers, there are a few folky type, duos who are out there telling stories, but again, it comes back to, are they being heard? Like, why are we not hearing them? Because I'm sure they're out there. You're having to physically go and search for that rather than having it, presented to you.
Wow. Hey, by the way, everybody, I want to welcome on board my good friend in the Northwoods, ladies and gentlemen, down there. Say hi to Nancy in Wisconsin. Hi, Nancy. How are you, my friend?
Hi, doing good.
Great having you on board. And Nancy, you've shared many, many stories with us on our chats and our conversations and everything. And I'm so happy that you're with us live and in person. And do you have any offerings or any perspective on this conversation as far as like music writing in first versus third person back when we were all, we're all younger, and then as opposed to what we have in this day and age today?
First of all, thank you. I feel honored that you brought me up.
Anytime.
The only thing that popped into my mind when Helen was talking about, storytelling is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with a group called Sabaton. They're a group. It's pretty much heavy metal, right? Yeah. My son discovered them, and then my husband was listening because they actually take historical, mostly World War II, historical, you know, happenings and have put into music. I just thought that was interesting that kind of, in this day and age where, like Helen said, it's bitches and hoes, that somebody's coming out with music with a story. Basically, it's historical. No,
Yeah.
husband said a song called "Sink the Bismarck."
Oh God, Johnny Horton.
Well, no, this is Sabaton that has this, and it's all about thinking of the Bismarck.
But the band artist for Sink the Bismarck, who sang that? That was that.
Oh,
Yeah, that was Johnny Horton.
Johnny Horton.
oh,
Original. Yeah.
yeah. My husband said it was Johnny Horton.
Man with New Orleans, and yeah,
Do, 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 do,
Well,
do,
it came to mind about storytelling. The Beatles came, of course. A Day in the Life.
Yep.
I read the news today. Oh boy, about lucky man who made the grade.
Yeah.
Kind of a story in the whole story.
Yeah. Exactly. I think there are some storytellers that are still out there, but I just don't think that they're being recognized or they're being the AOR people are concerned that it's not going to sell. It's all about it's a business. It's not about content. It's about making money. And if it's pimps and hoes that are going to be making money, then so be it. And unfortunately, it's at the expense of some talented songwriters and singers that are not getting the recognition that they rightfully deserve.
so it's economics and opportunity, Mace, is kind of what you're.
Seems like it. It's not. It's just it's moving product.
And maybe we'll see with the oversaturation of that type of content, we'll see somebody that'll decide, I'm going to go a different way and I'm going to tell something from a different way, and maybe that will become popular. It may, kind of ebbs and flows that way. When something gets way oversaturated, people start to look for something different.
Yep. Ultimately, people will get tired of it. Ultimately, what's old is new again, is what they say.
Well, I think that's already a thing, and I think with streaming services like Spotify and whatever, it's much easier for people to go and find their own things now and search and do their own research for things now. They're not reliant on their commercial radio stations to tell them what to listen to anymore, because the choices are vast and people are able to make their own music and put it out there without a record label. So there are I mean, don't get me wrong, it's hard work. I have to do it every week for my show. But if you go out and search for things, it's out there. But you do have to search for it. I do want to I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's a lot of people in the chat we didn't say hello to. We missed Sean, we missed Pons, we missed Michael Joseph Murray. I don't know who else we missed, but we know that you're there and we see your comments and we're so wrapped up in the conversation. But thank you for joining us and keeping us company while we have our chin wag. And sorry we didn't acknowledge you sooner.
I know, that was my bad. Golden Squirrels from Michael Joseph Murray. Sean's in here from the quiz. And love my Ozzy over there in beautiful Massachusetts. She even mentions another Beatles song, Benefit of Mr. Kite for Mr. K.
For the benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show tonight. Don't be late.
Hi, Brenda.
Brenda's in here. Hi, Brenda.
You know, Paul kind of did that. John got kind of tired of Paul's doing that, but Paul was that guy, and John, it started to wear on John at the end, right?
Yeah, I think so. They were like so opposite in their musical styles, but together, you know, they really made some great music. And like you said, I think they tolerated each other for just so long, and then it was like, screw it, you know.
Now, here's a little known fact that many of you may or may not know about Nancy. Nancy attended a Beatle concert.
Yep.
September 4th, 1964, a day that lives in infamy.
64 on top of it. My God. That is so awesome.
All 32 minutes of it.
Where was the gig at, Nancy?
It was at the arena in Milwaukee.
So it was actually like where the Mecca is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. I think, the arena was torn down, and they built the whole big other complex.
Yeah, right over on 5th and
Kilbourne.
Yeah. My goodness. What was that like to be a part of that experience, to be one of the lucky few that made their way into there that night?
Well, we were lucky about 10,000, I think, was the number. Well, I was 13 years old, and I was allowed to go because I went with my neighbor who was 14, I believe, 14 or 15. I can't remember which.
That was your supervisor, was 14.
Yeah. So we went early in the afternoon. So we took a city bus to downtown Milwaukee, and we went to a Mark's Big Boy restaurant. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Oh my God, that's over on where the Grand Avenue was. There used to be that Mark's Big Boy.
It was on like 6th and Wisconsin, something like that. So we went there. Right. We went there to eat. Not that either of us could eat much. You know, we were so excited. And then we walked down to the arena where lots of people were milling around waiting to get in. And we were on the opposite end of the stage in the arena, because the tickets were $250, $350, $450, and $550.
Okay.
And since we had to buy our own tickets, we bought the $350 ones, not understanding at that time was if you buy the cheaper seats, you're going to be further away, you know. And they actually sold the tickets. There was a pawn shop in Milwaukee run by a man named Nick Topping. And he was approached by whoever, I don't know who exactly, but to sell the tickets. So my dad worked downtown. He worked in City Hall. And one of his lunch hours, he took off and he went down to the pawn shop and bought our 2 tickets for us. And those tickets were on sale for approximately a week. They did not sell out, immediately. This is sort of early in the Beatles phenomena, but especially here in this country, not so much, in England and stuff. But so, yeah, there was like 10,000 or so. There were several acts that came on before the Beatles. Jackie DeShannon, the Exciters, the Bill Black Combo, I think the Righteous Brothers started out on the tour, but they dropped out by that time.
Oh, wow.
And there was somebody else, and I can't remember who. I don't remember who. So this went on for like 2 hours with all of these with these opening acts, and everybody was getting,
Restless.
yeah, exactly.
We got your money's worth. I mean, for $3.50, you had to see some really amazing acts that day.
Really.
He has a lot of money back then, though, to part ways with.
Yeah, and see, my girlfriend and I, we had to pay for our own tickets, so that was another thing too. Even at that age. But and it was a stage. I remember the stage, and then there were 2 curtains on either side of the stage, and every time one of those curtains would open up a little bit, everybody would scream. And I remember one time one of the curtains opened up and you could see the limousine driving in back there. Well, that was, really chaotic. And, they just had their little amplifiers on the stage like you'd see a band at a bar these days. It was not the huge, not like Paul McCartney has now, with 3-story tall.
Yeah, the big sound systems.
These arrays that go up.
It was just, and the MC was a disc jockey from WOKY, Bob Berry.
20 on your dial.
Yeah, 920.
Yeah.
WOKY. Anyway, he introduced them, and they came on, and it was just a massive flashlights, or flash bulbs, flashing and screaming. You could hear the first couple bars of the song just long enough to tell what song it was, and then it was like, you couldn't hear a damn thing.
Chaos.
But it didn't matter because we were there in the arena breathing the same air the Beatles were breathing. It was, so it's an experience. It was an experience, I've never forgotten, 13-year-old kid, just so enamored with the Beatles, and I just considered myself lucky to have been able to experience it firsthand.
Now, when the Beatles broke up, were you devastated, or did you know it was coming, or both, or what were your feelings then?
Well, I have to admit, excuse me, that when they broke up, I was in my first year of college, and college kind of took priority over a lot of things at that time. And so I kind of lost track of them. And actually, I hate to admit it, but once they got into Magical Mystery Tour and
Abbey Road.
What's the other?
Sgt. Pepper.
Sgt. Pepper's.
Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour. Those, I thought they kind of went off the deep end.
Just too psychedelic, too trippy.
It didn't interest me as much either, so I kind of lost track of them at that point. And
you weren't on the right substances to be able to appreciate it, Nancy.
Yes. Yeah, I guess.
There's no acid,
Yeah. So, like I said, I was in college, and at that point I was...
So you weren't walking around in a mohair suit then?
No, it was not. So
did specific bands like in college replace the Beatles, and then those bands subsequently then became the soundtrack of your college years?
Not really. Well, kind of at the same time as the Beatles, I kind of went over to the Herman's Hermits. Not something I'm proud to admit. And I saw them twice in Milwaukee.
Wow.
But they were just, it was just not, I was not specifically honed in on one particular group or whatever after that point.
Okay.
And music kind of took a back seat, like I said, for some reason. So I just have my memories basically of the 60s music. It was just meaningful to me. I was an only child. Not that was bad, but music was was my life at that point. Early teens.
Right.
What got me through. I was not a popular kid at school. I had my own little group of friends, but it was just, I don't know. I listened to the radio all the time when I was early teenager. And then, like I say, when I got a little older, it kind of took a back seat. And I never really followed the Beatles solo, works too much. I was cognizant of them. I think I bought a couple of Paul McCartney Tug of War and forgot what other one.
I got done.
Ram.
Pardon me?
Ram, maybe.
Ram, I don't. Yeah.
Maybe for Venus.
Back to the Egg.
Oh, Back to the Egg. Yeah, 1978.
They're all looking.
Yeah.
Onto
a Good Night Tonight on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 78. Yeah, I got At the Speed of Sound from 76, Venus and Mars from 74, Tug of War from 82, and Flowers in the Dirt on CD in 89.
Yeah, I might have had Flowers in the Dirt too. I could find
Didn't he play the Bradley Center? Because that was the year the Bradley Center opened up in Milwaukee in 89. And I'm not sure if he played County Stadium, but he did play Soldier Field here and the Horizon here in Chicago. I saw him at Soldier Field. Outstanding show in 89 at Soldier Field, and then subsequently over at the Horizon. But very good live. Yeah, I think he had Denny Lane with him on both tours.
Yeah, I missed those years.
Yeah.
Saw Paul McCartney at County Stadium in '93, I want to say.
Okay.
And then a couple of times at the Bradley Center, and then at County Stadium again, or it was Miller Park at that time.
Oh, okay.
And then probably the best McCartney concert I went to was at the Cole Center in Madison, which is where the UW-Madison basketball, where they play. And it's a small venue. I don't know how many it holds, but it's small, and we had pretty good seats, and that was probably the best. When it's small and kind of intimate, and you don't feel like you're one of 60,000. It was a lot of fun. And then 2 days later, we went to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, and my husband and I saw him there, and I was not. It was like. Ugh. Yeah, it was just.
I know. I was just going to say, there's a lot of
Packers,
yes. So it was just too big.
There in the fall and take care of business.
The team from up north.
What was that?
I said, can't we just have a pleasant conversation without you mentioning the team from up north?
Sorry, I just said Lambeau Field. I really didn't say anything else. Yeah, no, that was just, you couldn't even see them. Fortunately, there was a big screen near us to see, but you really couldn't. And the acoustics weren't that good. You kept getting a slap back from the back of the the oval, the field, whatever, and it was a goofy echo coming. But anyway, that's my story. Sorry, hope I didn't bore y'all.
No. I mean,
Can I just say that Goofy Echo sounds like it should be the name of an album? I think it should be.
It was really kind of weird, the sound there, but.
And you were another part of another historical scene. You were at the Summerfest where they basically trashed everything. Were you at that as well?
That was Nancy. She started it.
Yeah. Now no, I don't remember ever trashing, but I remember one of the very early Summerfests. I mean, it was just mud and it was not what it is today. Not nearly. It was just like
I think Jim's deflecting because he was in attendance at Disco Demolition Night.
I do remember getting caught in a really massive thunderstorm there. I think it was the Association we were seeing, and
Great.
They decided they should stop the concert because of
Yeah.
these guys with their electric guitars and everything. And there was lightning and there was craziness. So, yeah, we went
Was
back
that
to our
Sly and the Family
concert.
Stone by chance?
What?
Was that Sly and the Family Stone that was playing that show?
No, we didn't see Sly and the Family Stone. We did see, like I say, I think it was the Association.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure.
Along comes Mary. I got that. That's wild. That's wild. So was that your first concert? Was the Beatles concert? Or did you go to a gig before that?
No,
How about you, Sean? Or Bird, tell us, what was your first concert ever?
Rockford Metro Center. My
Oh
father
my
took me to see Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Uh,
And the first song they played was Puff the Magic Dragon. So I was roughly 10 years old listening to stoners sing about a stoned dinosaur and loving it every minute. But, the musicality and storytelling that folk singing group,
mhm.
and I loved that group. I mean, yeah, there was some, with Peter Yarrow, there's some controversy there, but Mary Travers to me she was the school teacher, that would read the books to the kids. She had a pleasant demeanor and a great way of delivery and a beautiful voice, and just
Nice.
her
Pure voice.
beauty resonated throughout the audience. So I really enjoyed it.
Wow. How about you, Helen? First concert ever?
I was tiny. Tiny. Ultravox, Edinburgh Playhouse, Set Movements Tour, approximately 1984, so I'd be
Oh
about
my
3.
God.
And it was when they still had the gods, where because we
Yeah.
had seats in the gods, and I was 3 or less, 2 or 3, having to climb the steps to get up to the gods. I remember that very distinctly.
Oh,
My Auntie Pauline and my mother,
yeah.
right, took me, but it's not that so much that I dragged them, but they knew that, because at that point I loved that band already. Like, it wasn't like they took me to see them and I fell in love with them. It wasn't that. I was the fan, so they took me to see them, right?
Oh,
So
God.
I remember little bits of it. I don't remember the whole concert, but I remember bits of it. I remember distinctly a light bulb swinging above Midgear's head, right? Like, during the song. And then at the end I'm reaching up and switching it off. And I remember them all having the drum solo. They're all lined up at the end with doing the drum solo at the end of the voice. That was very distinctive. But I was like super little. Like, I can't remember the whole gig.
Right.
But I remember just, points of it. And I remember going. I remember being so excited at getting to go because I loved Ultravox. I thought they were the bee's knees. And I still do.
And your mom took you to the show,
My mum and my auntie.
and your auntie. My God, they've got exceptional taste in music.
My mum, do you know what? My mum is to blame for so much. Like, I was immersed in music from
Okay.
a very, very early age. I mean, like, obviously even younger than when I went to that gig. And her musical taste was very eclectic. Like, I honed in on the electronic thing, the synth thing. That was my thing. And I went through like an Adamant phase in my teens in the mid-90s, which was odd because it was 10 years after he left the charts. But my mum's taste was very much the Eagles, Don McLean, John Denver, all the things we were talking about earlier. But also she would listen to that, and then she would listen to Kraftwerk, or she would listen to John Fox, or she would listen to,
now we're talking.
you know what I mean? But never really Ultravox. It's really odd. Like, she was never really an Ultravox fan. Like, that's what I honed in on.
Right.
But she did, very eclectic. And I remember distinctly, sorry, I know this isn't what you asked me, but you took me off on a tangent about my mother. I remember very, very distinctly her having, the gatefold LPs, and it was now that's what I call music, and they had like a whatever the hits from that year were.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember her having this grey with the diagonal stripes on it. I think it must have been 1984's version, maybe the second or third. Now that's what I call music. And her asking me what songs I wanted on my mixtape. She would make up a cassette, because I had a cassette player in the bedroom.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I was to choose which songs from the album,
compilation, right?
the compilation album, which songs I wanted on my mixtape. I remember going through it, and obviously they had little photos of the band next to the songs, and I probably wouldn't be able to read the songs, but I knew what the songs were because I knew who the bands were, because we watched Top of the Pops religiously on a Thursday night every week. That's what I mean. I was immersed in that from, well, since before I could talk. You know, and it's her fault that I am the way that I am. She's taking the blame for it.
That's just a cool story. I love that. I can just, because Love's Great Adventure came out in 1984. I didn't know of anything about Midge or Ultravox till 1983. March of 83, I first heard Reap the Wild Wind here in the States. They never played like Lament. They never played Vienna. They never played any of that stuff here in the States. Some of the college stations did, Left of the Dial here in America. They call it Left of the Dial. A lot of the college stations played it because it was more freeform. FM radio in the 70s and 80s and 90s ultimately became very corporate and mainstream and homogenized and very, very narrow playlists and not as challenging or daring. But Love's Great Adventure in 84 was kind of a big hit here in the States as well. Not like top 40, but it was still crazy good.
Well, that song, Love's Great Adventure, started off as music for a Levi's commercial.
Really?
It did. Do you want to know the story, or do you want to talk about something else? Or do you want me to geek out over this with you? Will I tell you the story?
Please do.
So, around 1982, Criss Cross and Midge from Ultravox did the music for the Levi's Threads campaign. No, sorry, tell a lie. Rivets campaign. It was the Rivets campaign, and that's on YouTube. You can go Google up. You can Google,
I vaguely remember the Rivets.
The Rivets advert, right?
Yeah.
So they did the music for that, and then they were asked to do the follow-up, which was for the Threads, right? So they'd had the Rivets campaign, and then they were going to do the Threads. But there was so much back and forth with, Levi's, and Midge was like, "Nah, do you know what? Just give me my music back." And they turned it into Love's Great Adventure. But it was originally going to be the follow-up to the Rivets campaign.
So it wasn't the lyrics; it was just the music.
The music, and do and that was. If you think about Threads, it was meant to be like,
That is wild, unbelievable.
And it was a massive hit. And that video, up until that point, I think most people thought Ultravox were German because they were so po-faced in all their videos, right? Mm-hmm. And then they brought out the Love's Great Adventure video. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Obviously, Jim knows what I'm talking about, but I don't know if you guys know her. But it was humorous and it was funny. Like it was witty. And suddenly it was like, oh, these guys have got a sense of humor. Like, but I think up until that point, like, people didn't really. They thought they were austere and like po-faced and serious all the time. Because a lot of their early videos, beautifully produced and directed, like masterclass in, like they were like mini movies.
Yeah.
But they were all very serious. If you look at things like Him or The Thin Wall, they're kind of creepy, actually. They're kind of, eerie. And everybody knows the Vienna video, but, their stuff was austere. And then Love's Great Adventure came along and it's like, okay, these guys have got a sense of humor.
It was a left turn. It wasn't something that people were expecting, to say the least. No question. Hey, I have about 15 more minutes. I don't know if you guys still have time to hang out here a little bit. We're approaching the 1 hour mark of our broadcast this afternoon and this evening for our friends over in Europe and over in the parts of the world, and for our friends over in Australia, Asia. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. Welcome to the Music Roundtable, being joined by 365 Radio's Helen Wallace. Over there in the Northwoods today, it's Nancy. No North Country for you guys. It's Northwoods time today, and it's also a great place where there's a lot of good beer product over there. And down there, right there, right, it's just below me there is the pride and joy of what they called at one time the screw capital of the world, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Rockford, Illinois. Yes,
the Forest City.
Oh my!
Yes,
home of
the screw capital.
Yep. You got it.
I learned recently about Cheap Trick a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how they got their name. They'd gone to a concert by a British band called Slade.
Slade, really?
And their guitar player Tom Peterson,
Yeah,
said,
love him.
man, those guys pull out all the cheap tricks, and then light bulb, bingo, that's what we should call our name. So inadvertently, attending a Slade concert gave the members of Cheap Trick the idea to call their band Cheap Trick.
That is wild. So it's Tom Peterson of all people, not Bunny Carlos at the time, wasn't Robin Zander, wasn't Rick Nielsen.
No, it was
Tom Peterson, the
was
most
the one
low-key
that nobody
guy.
knows. It was
Well,
Tom Peterson that
Yeah,
came
the most
connected
low-key
to
guy.
that. So connected to that, similar.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about Cheap Tricks and Slade. You know how Noddy Holder used to have the hat with all the mirrors on it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? That inspired Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy to always have a mirror on his guitar, right? And he would shine it into the audience, into the women's faces in the audience, and like chat, be sort of like flirtatious with it. But it was Noddy Holder's hat that inspired that, always having a mirror on his guitar.
Oh,
During
wow.
the Thin Lizzy concerts. So there you go. There's a little piece of useless information for you.
And we all know that Slade Slade was reimagined in the United States with a band called Quiet Riot, and just was a huge success. So yeah, it looks like Noddy had a large influence on quite a few,
without people really realizing it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Slade was going to make a huge comeback in 1884 because Runaway, to me, arguably, is like one of my quintessential, if I'm stranded on an island, I need a song just to get rowdy or to get myself pumped up or motivated. That's like a softball pregame batting practice song or a walk-up song. When I walk up to bat, someone has the boombox. One week I did have them play Runaway when I came up to bat.
You could play that at like a medieval battle before the medieval battle begins.
Yeah.
You'd have a really good Donnybrook,
Yeah, absolutely. God, Cheap Trick slayed a lot of these bands. Ozzy's encountering a huge parade marching band. Are they playing any Slade or any Cheap Trick? No. Left turn here, because I love Cheap Trick, by the way, too. As far as
Jim, I want you to want me.
Can I also just point something else out? And I don't know if you're aware or realize that you did this, but you asked us all what our first gig was, and you didn't tell us what yours was.
Busted.
All
I missed nothing, Jim. I missed nothing.
No pressure. Let me try to think here. Yes, because technically it was supposed to be 1981. I was supposed to go see Rush over at the Rosemont Horizon, October of 1981. Moving Pictures tour. Somebody who will remain anonymous kind of got involved at a party the night before that got raided. And the parents got wind of it, and I was not allowed to go to Rush. I was grounded, and the keys were taken away from me from the car, and I was not at Rush that night. And then furthermore, AC/DC was going to play also in November, For Those About to Rock tour in 81. That I couldn't go to either. That was my double whammy grounding.
Okay, so now I feel like I've just opened up old wounds and re-traumatized you, and I'm really sorry for that.
And it wasn't like I was just the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't like I was fighting with anybody. I don't fight. I'm not a fighting person. Anyway, I literally... that was at a verbal dramatic pause for no reason. I didn't instigate anything, but I just happened to be at the wrong place, wrong time, and the party got raided and stuff, and we were kind of deer in headlights. So out was the Rush show, Moving Pictures tour, AC/DC For Those About to Rock tour, gone. So it took me until 17 years of age, March of 1983, to see my first gig. It was at the the Rosemont Horizon, which is now the Allstate Arena near O'Hare Airport here in Chicago. And it was a very good headliner, Triumph. The band Triumph, three-piece rock band out of Canada. Rick Emmett and company put on an outstanding 2-hour show over there. They were promoting Thunder 7. They had Allied Forces, which I still think is one of the most quintessential hard rock albums anywhere. They also did stuff off their debut album. The part that sucks was the opening band. It was Foghat. And it was basically the bass player was the only original guy from Foghat who had the naming rights. And Ozzy saw Triumph in '84. They were very good. That was the Allied Four or the Thunder 7 tour with World of Fantasy. And no, it was Never Surrender. Never Surrender tour was '83. Thunder 7 was after that. I apologize. But Triumph was exceptionally good, very good. And then I went to college, and that's where I got the concert bug because I couldn't go to those concerts as a high school kid. So ever since then, at the age of 58, I now am fighting the wife to go to concerts, and I'm not going to get grounded. And I will be at Pitchfork Friday, Saturday, and Sunday next weekend. Back to you in the newsroom.
You know, what's unique is 2 of the 3 bands were a 3-piece band that you had the opportunity to attend.
Yes.
And a 3-piece band is not common. It's very unusual to have just a 3-piece band.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think of like bands like Husker Du from Minneapolis, or Three Dog Night, or trying to think of some other 3-piece bands.
The Police.
Police,
Rush, absolutely.
And I've seen Rush 3 times since before Neil Peart's passing, but outstanding live.
Sons and husbands.
Was T-Rex 3-person or 2?
Pretty sure there were 3.
3, okay. Blind Faith. Woodwood, Clapton, and
Motorhead
Baker.
was 3.
Cream was 3, right?
Yeah. Motorhead was 3.
Motorhead. Oh yeah. Lemmy. Don't forget Lemmy.
Green Day.
Muse.
Muse is 3.
So maybe it's not as uncommon as I thought it was.
That's a band that has really fallen off the cliff. The first 3 Muse albums were outstanding, and then all of a sudden, just to me,
I disagree. I think their last one was brilliant.
really,
The most recent one. Yeah, there's a couple of really good tracks on there. Compliance,
yeah.
Verona, cracking tracks.
You played Compliance on your show not too long ago.
I've played it multiple times, and Verona.
Okay.
And what's the other one? There's another one, Compliance. They did, I think, You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween is an absolute banger as well from the same album.
Okay. Is it just me, or is it just sometimes we get into a rut where the first 2 or 3 albums from an artist are so good and so outstanding, then when they bring out subsequent albums, we have a tendency, and this might be the case with Muse, is that we try to compare them to their original works, or we expect it to be as good, and then it's
I
not.
don't think it's about expecting it to be, or maybe we wrongly expect it to be as good. That's not the phrase I would use, because
Yeah.
bands, from a musician perspective, they don't want it to sound like, they don't want to replicate the same thing over and over again, right? They want to evolve. They want to do something different. They want to experiment, right? So
Got it.
maybe as listeners, we're not prepared for that. But why would they expect to just continuously, formulaically produce the same thing? Obviously, they're evolving. Their sounds constantly evolving.
Somebody forgot to tell Angus Young that, Helen.
Somebody forgot to tell who?
Angus Young that. Hands are
Funny.
supposed to evolve.
But you know what I mean? Like it's maybe by the 3rd album, bands know who they are or what they are. I mean, use U2 as an example, right? Took them 3 albums to find their feet before they came along with everybody knows the Joshua Tree, right? But actually, the Unforgettable Fire before that was just as good an album. But they're finding their feet. They're finding their feet, and they're experimenting, and they're trying to find their sound. And I actually think that music got better over time. Better, for want of a better word.
you take a band like Pink Floyd. One of my favorite songs by Pink Floyd is a disco song, and one of my favorite songs by Led Zeppelin is a reggae song. So I mean, yeah, there was times when they would go out on a limb and experiment, and it worked out in favor of the band, and there's times when they've gone out and experimented and it's been like tragedy.
But they've still maintained their integrity because they're still trying to do something different. They're still trying. I mean, it would be very easy to just continuously replicate the same thing over and over again to appease people. But that's not what being an artist is. Being an artist is evolving and expanding and experimenting and you know.
But as listeners, we're being selfish, and I think I'm being like that with Muse because I'm always thinking of, you know, I'm thinking of all these, you know,
Map of the Problematique is probably
Yeah.
my favorite album.
Yeah.
Muse album. But you know, even like I say, the most recent one and the one before it, Drones. Some great tracks on that album as well.
Mhm.
Like I think it's just you expect bands to stay in their lane, stay in their, you know, they've developed a sound,
Right.
and it's odd to you when they take a tangent off.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's necessary. Otherwise, they would just get bored. Why would you know?
You know, but there's a point sometimes when you lose your audience. I would say Prince lost his audience in the 90s. Not that Prince wasn't just as magnificent.
right.
The majority of his audience was lost, and he started coming out with very experimental stuff, and people were kind of like, I'm not really gonna listen to this.
But you know what though, Bird? That happened to a lot of people who were transitioning from 80s to 90s, and it's because the 80s were so flamboyant and big and
Yeah.
bright, and you know, everything was excessive. And Prince is a good example of that. You know, the frilly shirts, the big shoulder pads, very flamboyant. And then the 90s became quite kind of street and pared down, and you had grunge. And a lot of those bands did not translate from the 80s to the 90s. Prince is actually a really good example of that. You know, it's not just the bands that were changing, the audience was changing. You know, they found it hard to find their feet in the 90s.
The market changed. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, Prince basically remarketed himself basically as Prince and the Revolution with Wendy and Lisa in the 80s, and then it became New Power Generation. The Diamond and Pearls album in 1991/92 was arguably one of his best albums ever. But if you think about it, and Bird, you're onto something here. After that, he kind of went way over the top with the whole, the symbol thing and the new record. He tried to get out of his Warner Brothers record label deal.
Right,
And
but that's an issue. He was trying to take himself back. He was trying to reclaim
okay,
himself. I mean, they were ripping him off.
right. So they were
The
trying
label
to,
were ripping. You know, there was an issue there with these contracts or whatever. I'm not
yeah,
actually that au fait with the whole deal with that, but you know, calling himself the artist formerly known as and symbol and all that, that was a legal maneuver.
Who would you
Really.
say? Who would you say Prince's competitor was? Because it seemed as though Michael Jackson was able to transfer his popularity from the 80s into the 90s. It was almost like he had sealed in his popularity no matter what he put out. Whereas Prince, his popularity waned as he went forward. You know what I'm saying? It was like Michael was just universal.
Yeah.
Prince may not have been as universal as we thought he was.
I think Prince was just basic. I mean, to me personally, I mean, Michael Jackson's a great talent, but I'm saying is Prince to me personally was more creative and more daring. He really, after a while, he was so pissed off at the music industry. He just wanted to do what he wanted to do for his mind and for his heart. And he was passionate about his music. And if people didn't like it, the music industry, he just,
And there was an element of deliberately sabotaging things because it was the industry that were benefiting off his sales and not really him. So why would he continue to output his best work knowing that he's not going to benefit from it and that other people are benefiting from it? Put your teeth back in, Helen. You know what it is I'm trying to say? I think there was an element of intentionally kind of sabotaging the formula.
Yeah,
You know
So
what I mean?
I guess Prince has at his Paisley Park establishment, he has works that have never been released. Now that the family is in control of his estate, I wonder if we will see that. We will see some of the stuff that he was producing that he didn't release, and what kind of time period we expect to see him.
Well, what would be interesting is to find out what contract he was tied into and what the deal was, and how much of that they would theoretically own if it was, they might want to
Yeah.
wait until whatever time frame was expired and then they can self-release. I have no idea, but that's what you need to investigate is if there's a delay, there must be a legal reason why there's a delay, because he was in a battle with the powers that be, big time.
yeah. Wild stuff, though. Unbelievable. Yeah, that's like I said. But I guess it's kind of a two-headed monster here. So basically, for some of us, we are expecting a sound from a band or an artist to continue for our own personal satisfaction. But on the other hand, there are bands that want to evolve to create and, you know, move away from becoming typecast as a band that had whatever sound. Like if, Muse doesn't want to be typed as being the band that's doing Time Is Running Out all the time, or, they don't want to be labeled as being the song that's saying Madness,
Well, do you know what?
they want to
And I'm
move on.
sorry to harp on about Ultravox, but Ultravox are a classic example of this,
Oh,
right?
okay.
They
Pre-Midge.
released no,
Pre-Midge.
no, 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 no.
Oh,
I'm talking mid-year Ultravox because
okay.
to me that is Ultravox, right? Pre-Midge, John Fox Ultravox. I don't even consider that as Ultravox.
That stuff is out there. It was interesting.
Ultravox released the Uvox album in 1986. In between that and their previous album, Lament, in 1984,
Yeah.
Midge did a solo album called The Gift in 1985, which had a
Oh,
few.
yeah. Okay.
And Ultravox fans refer to Uvox as the pink thing. They don't consider it as Ultravox. It doesn't sound like Ultravox. There's a lot more brass on it. There's a lot more acoustic on it. You had a collaboration with the Chieftains on it. It didn't sound electronic. It didn't sound like Ultravox. And most people consider Midyear's solo album to be what Ultravox's final album. Actually, as it happens, it's not the final album because they released something else in 2013. But prior to that, when they packed in their final album, 1986, was Uvox. And most Ultravox fans would say, well, Midyear's solo album should have been the stuff that was on that should have been put on the final Ultravox album, right? And that Uvox sounds more like Midge solo. So when you listen to those songs, when you just listen to those songs in isolation, not knowing Ultravox's back catalogue and just listen to this, they're bloody good songs. But it's looked down upon by Ultravox fans because it's like, well, that's not Ultravox. That's the pink thing. They don't.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? They don't even call it by its name, Uvox. They just say on the pink thing because it was a pink cover. But nobody, it's really looked down upon by the staunch Ultravox fans. I consider myself as a Midge fan. I liked it because I like his solo stuff as well.
Yeah.
Right. And he went off more on a tangent, that solo album, The Gift, was electronica, and then he went off and did,
Yeah.
Answers to Nothing and, Pure, which was much more guitar based.
Yeah,
And
89
that sounds more like his
there's
solo
stuff
stuff.
he opened up with his guitar sound.
Mm-hmm. But it kind of already had kicked off with Uvox. So that's a good example. The fans hated that album, and they still do. They hate that album. When they came back in 2013 with Brilliant, that sounded like Ultravox. It was much more electronic, and people were like, yeah, this sounds like Ultravox. But Uvox kind of, they lost their audience at that point.
Yeah.
But actually, when you listen to the album, you listen to the songs, there's some really good songs on there. But people are prejudiced because, well, that doesn't sound like Ultravox.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the Chieftains who are a Celtic, Irish folk band singing a duet with them on it, which was released as a single, and it flopped because people are like, what the F is this?
Right.
That's not Ultravox,
Yeah. And that's a classic example where some of us as listeners tend to separate or disseminate between the sounds that we were used to for a band or an artist that we were used to listening to when we were comfortable versus something that's completely avant-garde that just doesn't interest us. But maybe it was the decision of like a Majur or for Uvox or whoever to create and expand. And if you think about it, Nancy, you elaborated on that with John Lennon and Paul McCartney. They butted heads all the time, but they were trying to evolve. Were they evolving the same way that Beatle fans wanted? Not really. It alienated some people, like in Nancy's case. It's like, okay, this magical mystery tour thing, this is not me. Give me Beatles 65, give me, the older stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and same thing for you, Bird. We talked about Prince, where we loved probably listening to like Dirty Mind and Controversy and songs like that, and obviously stuff off of 1999 like Take Me With You and all of that stuff, and from Purple Rain and everything. But all of a sudden, after the Diamonds and Pearls album in '92 from NPG, all of a sudden Prince just drops off of the deep end because of his record label disputes, but he wants to create, he wants to expand, like what Helen was alluding to with
I'll give you
Major.
another brilliant example, Jim.
Mhm.
Bee Gees.
Oh,
1960s Bee Gees sound nothing like Saturday Night Fever Bee Gees.
ooh, good example. Because what was the first Bee Gees song any of you guys heard? Go.
That I heard or that I'm aware of.
Ever. Any Bee Gees song. What's the first Bee Gees?
I don't know. My mum used to listen to the Bee Gees
I
all the
wanna
time and all of them.
Okay, I want to say New York mining disaster,
Brilliant song.
but
Mine was There's a World.
They never shone on me.
Love Somebody, maybe?
Love somebody.
Right? Mine was Lonely Days.
Lonely days.
1970.
Lonely nights.
Great song.
Right. So those 60s Bee Gees songs, amazing, right? But the popularity really took off when they did the disco thing.
Yep.
And another example of brilliant singer, another example of storytelling, brilliant singer-songwriters. How many songs have they written for other people?
True.
Hundreds.
True.
Tremendous. There's survivors in the music industry that have stuck to their true nature with small adjustments. Springsteen's an example. Have stuck to what they are. AC/DC, it's the same album, different lyrics. And then you got the avant-garde people, like you said, the people that have decided now I'm going to be. What about groups that have rose out of tragedy? AC/DC could be included in this list, but I was thinking more like, Nirvana to Dave Grohl, where people turning into the Foo Fighters to recapture some of that Nirvana, and now Foo Fighters got a new fan base and carried some of the Nirvana fans over, but also formed their own fan base.
Plus, Foo Fighters lost Taylor Hawkins last year.
And also sprouting off from Nirvana, you have Butch Vig going into Garbage as well. Garbage is a whole other,
Yep, exactly. Thing. God, yeah, that's. But back to the Bee Gees, though. I'm glad you brought them up. That's a classic example. And then they came back in '89 with the song "One." Wasn't disco-y at all. Everyone's like, "Oh, Bee Gees, here we go!"
But you
all
also
this stuff.
had Andy Gibb at that. You also had Andy Gibb, who sounded like Barry, but was singing ballads and love songs. And so, if you didn't like the disco, you liked Andy. And if you know what I'm saying, and
but how sad is it that there was 4 of them and Barry's the only one left?
That's
tragic. You want to talk about tragedy? That's tragic.
Yeah.
Tragedy.
I'm just going to say the title of the song.
Set that up for you just so you can knock it down.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said before, think about how many other songs they've. I mean, Islands in the Stream, massive hit. The Diana Ross thing, the Chain Reaction, massive hit. Yep. They did the stuff for the Grease soundtrack as well as Saturday Night Fever, big hits. They've done a lot of stuff for a lot of other artists that people probably don't even realize the Bee Gees wrote, because it doesn't necessarily sound like the Bee Gees.
What about when the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton decided to reenact Sgt. Pepper?
I saw that movie like 3-4 times. I shouldn't admit that either, but not only did I like the Beatles, but I liked the Bee Gees. So, it was kind of...
Well, that's another example of something that I was brainwashed with by my mother as a kid. All of the Bee Gees stuff. You're a massive Bee Gees fan.
I saw them with things too. That was the first concert I ever came out of. Talking to me, and where people were talking, I couldn't hear it. It was so loud.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize this, but almost an hour and a half of the show here. And I have to go cut my grass before it rains again.
Rise when you're having fun, Jimbo.
I know, this is my 1 hour and 25-minute escape from the everyday, and this means the world to me to be able to hear your stories about music, as far as music content, music industry, artists, fans, concert experiences. I love doing the quizzes and being a part of the quizzes with people like Nancy and with Birdman here, and Helen and I have been buddies for a while as well, as far as our love and our thirst for synth and all other related genres of music. For all of you replay viewers, thanks for hanging out, and everybody in our chat, thank you for hanging out with us. And in closing, I want everyone to just provide your socials and everything, and we are going to go around the table. Let's start off with Birdman down here in the corner here.
Well, currently I can be found on Cantina, and not much else. So I'm a joiner. I'm not really a leader in the social media world. But anyways,
Are you
Cantina, where you can find me? You can find me visiting Helen on Mixcloud. You used to be able to find me on Twitter, following Jem and Nancy, and so. I don't bring many guests to the table, Jim, but I'm glad to bring my opinion.
So basically what he's saying is you have to stalk other people's social media accounts to find him following so you can find him. That's what he's saying. You've got to do your research.
Which leads to this question. Are you going to be doing, when quiz season starts, when the weather starts sucking, and come back and do the quizzes, or no?
No, it had its place in time, and I enjoyed it, and so, yeah, probably not.
Okay. That's cool.
But I really hope you're going to do some more of these. Like, that would be cool.
I would love to join. Yeah, I would love to join. And thank you for the invitation. And Jim, thanks for hosting this. And Helen and I geek out on Cantina a lot of the time. Cantina is not necessarily the place where you're going to find a lot of this discussion, but occasionally you might find Helen and I geeking about music. So,
well, that was the thing. We were in the middle of a conversation, and I thought, do you know what? You need to be involved in the round table thing, because this is literally what we are doing here. What we were having the conversation there is just like this. It's just like, and it goes off on all these tangents about all these different.
Yes, I love the pace that Jim used to set on an application called Periscope. He used to set a pace with the time that he would discuss music and quiz and stuff like that, and he had a pace to him, and I enjoyed the pace that Jim brought. It wasn't too slow, wasn't too fast. When you went to visit Cliff, a different experience, professor of old school, and knowledge, interaction, and exposure to a lot of music that were deep tracks for certain artists. And Nancy also hosted, and I knew what to expect with Nancy, because Nancy would use the music that she was comfortable and familiar with, and then she would add in her own take, and that's how I found out that she had attended a Beatles concert live, and so yeah, it was all in your own rights. You have a pleasant way of presenting the material, and that I've enjoyed. And Helen on Mixcloud, it's nice because I can just sit back and I don't have to interact. I can just listen to what you're putting out there, and every once in a while you let me put a request in. So
the aim of that show is that someone might discover something new that they hadn't heard before, and that's all it is. That's literally what the whole point in that mixtape is. So hopefully somebody somewhere discovers something they didn't know about before.
That's one thing I love about, one of many things I love about your show, Helen, is that you're not just limiting yourself to synthwave. Although, when I looked at your playlist, I'm going to share this playlist. I meant to share this with our studio audience here before we call it a show. And we're going to get Nancy and Helen in here. Look at the playlist here. I mean, we're going. There we go. Bear with me here. There we go. So there it is in the middle there. There's the playlist, guys. I mean, this is a sweet list. This was from the 29th. What caught my attention here is that not only did Helen put in Sparks, the number one song in heaven, on there, which is an epic classic. She played Stell Council. She played Rusty.
Right, the Style Council was a request, and it was actually Birdman that requested it.
Oh my God, Sean! Exceptional taste. My friend.
That's funny.
Exceptional taste, because I'm a huge Paul Weller fan and the Jam. And then, of course, White Lies, who I think they need to get more airplay. I love them. Empathy Test, of course. That song, Demons, man. That song's deep. I love that song. And then Ultravox, obviously. And then she plays a Brandon Flowers track from his solo album, which I thought was The Killers for whatever reason. And I hear this song, and I play it like after the show. I play it on Spotify like 3 times in a row. I mean, that's a great.
So there's a sample in that track. Can you remember what the sample is?
Oh, yes, it was. Oh crap! Now I'm forgetting. Of course, that's what caught my attention. It was not Erasure. It was Small Town Boy.
Yeah, Bronski Beat. Yeah,
Bronski Beat Small Town Boy.
Small Town Boy. Yeah.
And he looped it and sampled it, and I was like, this is genius. Why can't Americans do this more often? We're so guitar heavy. I love guitars, don't get me wrong. But, sometimes it's good to, just strip it down, and Brandon Flowers did
but
that.
I think the Killers, though, I think Brandon Flowers and the Killers, I think a lot of their influences are British. Like, I think they're a lot of the stuff that they've been influenced by, are British bands. I think they've got that kind of. I think they were first. They first skyrocketed here. Like I think they were adopted here first before they made it big in America. Which is unusual, obviously, for an American band.
Exactly. And this was the playlist from last week. I heard what caught my. And there's Compliance, by the way.
Yep.
Song 6, another great White Lies song. Song that caught my attention from this playlist was right at the end when I heard Shirley Manson and Garbage with Stroke of Luck. What a great tune.
And not particularly synth heavy, but it seemed to lead on from the beat that was, the remix from the start again, Helen. The remix prior, the Nation of Language track, right?
Yes.
Is a remix.
Yes.
And so those two things kind of merged quite well because it was a similar kind of beat behind it. And I tend to try to do that. I tend to try to play, 3 tracks back to back, which have a similar feel or a similar beat or a similar and then it kind of flows. The whole thing just it's not just random tracks. Like it takes me a long time to not only pick the music, and obviously there's usually at least half a dozen new songs each week, which takes time to find. But I also, when I'm deciding the running order, it's so that everything kind of flows into one another, and it's like
I love that.
And
you mentioned Nation of Language. They're playing Pitchfork next Saturday. They're going to run next Friday with.
They are excellent. They've got a lot of good material. Check them out for sure, definitely.
I'm excited. They're going to be on in the middle of the afternoon. There's no one going to be there. I'm going to be excited.
I think they'll be big. I think again, it's that thing of getting them heard. Yep. They'll be middle of the afternoon this time round. Next time round, they might be nearer headlining it. They're going to be big.
Friday's going to be so fun because you've got Nation of Language, Youth Lagoon. The new Youth Lagoon is crazy good. Perfume Junius, I like him. Always is going to be there. And then Tom York and The Smile are going to be headlining.
Tom York?
Yes, from The Smile, from Radio.
Yeah.
Smile is his little side project.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a very exciting
cool.
Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get rid of this graphic. But that's an example of listen to, check out Helen's mixtape over on the 365 Radio app, or just listen to 365radio.co.
Yo.
Yeah, co. Nancy, grandma, proud grandma, and Northwoods enthusiast. You're just going to be hanging out on casts this summer, or what's the itinerary for you this summer?
Hanging out on what?
On live streams or on Clubhouse or?
Well, I don't like to admit it, but I do hang out on Cantina/Airtime.
Okay.
Sometimes you can find intelligent conversation there.
The three of us are in the room at the same time, usually.
I used to do music quizzes on Twitter Live. Haven't done one in a long time. It just kind of petered out, You can do just so many of them, and I go to other music quizzes until it doesn't interest me anymore either. And I just want to say my musical knowledge is a minuscule percentage of all of your music knowledge. I don't know most of what you're referring to. My musical knowledge is experience and life, and I don't know all of the little things. It's how music affected me for probably a kind of a small period of time in my life. But music, I always say music is a soundtrack. I have a soundtrack of my life with the music, and my husband and I will be walking through the grocery store, with the canned music, and we'll go Beatles in my life, So we're doing music quizzes while we're grocery shopping or out somewhere, or he plays the radio here at the lake, and we'll sit there and competing with each other to get the title and the artist. That's where I come from. I don't know a lot, behind the music or a lot of artists, but music is all.
At the end of the day, the thing we all have in common, regardless of the sort of geeking out thing, is that we're all music lovers. That's the thing that ties us all together. We all love music,
Yeah.
Well, Jim's doing his mime act in the background. He's been hurried along.
Are you done yet?
Yeah, no. The wife and daughter are going to some girls' party thing, and they're wondering where the sunblock is at. It's 23°C outside, and it's a pool party, so they're gonna go to a pool party, and then I'm just gonna go
mow the lawn
and do yard work before it rains tonight again.
11 in Tucson.
I know it's at least over there. It's like 45°C or whatever.
I would just melt into a little puddle at that point.
Look at that view down there.
It's been dark and icky and threatening. Oh, I don't know if you hear the thunder. So the thunder just started. So.
Oh, is it raining up there?
Yeah, and it's cool. It's only 60-something.
Oh, wow.
We went out fishing, and actually we came in because the sky was full of dark black clouds, and I get kind of freaked out by that.
It's 81 right now. 81 is about 23-24°C here. It's pretty. I love this weather. I like when the sun sets at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and I can be on the patio and see everything and relax. And days are good.
You're doing the fireside chats, Jim.
Catalyst, I'm doing on my 6th anniversary Wednesday night.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. 6 years of our fire pit. It's, like I said, firewood got expensive, and we were operating at a loss on Wednesday night, so I went to resorting to bringing a candle outside, but Wednesday will be a special edition, so I think if the weather cooperates, we'll have the fire pit. So, last but not least, though, that young lady right there, Miss Helen Wallace, please tell us a little bit about your socials and where we could find you.
Well, they're all on my bio link, which is on the screen under my face this whole time. So there's no excuse to not be able to find me. bio.link/Radio Leggy. That gives you everything. But I tend to do, well, obviously Jim mentioned Helen's mixtape on a Thursday. That's a Thursday night. That's 9 p.m. UK time, so that's 4 p.m. Eastern.
You mentioned that, yes.
On 365radio.co, or the 365 Radio app, or Radio Garden, or your smart speaker. If you just ask it to find it, it'll find it. It's called Helen's Mixtape. So that's weekly. And then once a month, thanks, Jim. And then once a month, we do Jukebox Jury, where we go into my emails and listen to submissions that have been sent in to be played on radio. And we go around the panel and we give our opinions. And we try to not be too harsh, but if something's a bit crap, we'll tell people that it's a bit crap. And conversely, if it's good, we'll make sure that they know that it's good. So that's once a month. And the next one of those is the 4th of August. The 4th of August is the next one. And that's all over the place. That's Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Mixcloud. It goes out to everything.
It is pouring. Oh my God.
What was that?
I said it's pouring here.
Oh, thank goodness you're inside then. You're not going to get drenched. You timed it
I
well.
just have to watch the wind directions through the closed windows.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I tend to, try to do these music roundtables as and when people can join. And now that I've added Nancy into the group chat as well. So, it'll make it easier for us all to communicate when we're free to do that. I would love to have had the Professor of Old School up here. Hopefully next time. Cliff, if you catch the replay, hopefully next time. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
And we'll try to make this a little more regular occurrence, because, we leave it for several months and they were like, we've not done that for a while. Should we do that again? It's so ad hoc and spontaneous. But if we have more people involved and wanting to do it, then we should be around a little bit more often to do it. So keep your eyes peeled for that, folks.
Well, I think that does it, guys. This was super crazy fun. And like I said, we definitely need to do these more often. And I think that should do it. I think that's all he wrote here, guys. I want to thank all of you replay viewers for spending your Sunday with us here. Also like to thank our moderators, mostly Brenda over there.
And the people in the chat that we didn't say hi to. I'm sorry.
Chat Nation.
Hi and goodbye.
Couldn't do that without you guys. Thank you. And there's Tucson. That's Matthew Vick, now known as Tucson, Arizona, USA. Matt, stay cool, buddy. Drink lots of water. Ozzy, enjoy the fish gigs. I will definitely have to check out. I do have this fish channel on my phone, Lisa, so I will definitely check that out. I think they did a gig over at in East Troy, Wisconsin, not too long ago also.
Okay.
And I think all you chat people, Redline, and all of you replay viewers, thank you for joining us tonight. So that's it, guys. So on behalf of Helen, Nancy, and Birdman, my name is Jim. I am from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Thanking you for joining us, and have a great Sunday, everybody.